Something I've been thinking a lot about lately is poverty and how to escape it. I see that coming for us. I see that in our future for so many of us. And I feel like we're just stuck on a train track and the train's coming and I can't figure out how to get off. Okay, and I don't mean to be all doom and gloom here. That's not what this is. I do think this is serious though. And for those of us that figure this out, I think we're going to do really well. We'll be okay. But for those of us that don't, I think this is going to be really hard. Okay, and the whole poverty thing, the reason I say that, okay, at the core of the issue here is as a nation, we don't make anything. Most Western nations, we don't make anything. All right, well, if we want stuff, we've got to go make stuff in order to trade for stuff. That's why we've got the trade imbalance we do. We don't make anything. We're just giving other countries our worthless money in exchange for real goods and services. Okay, and that's just the start of it. All right, then throw into the nation's $35 trillion in debt, over $170 trillion in unfunded liabilities, all-time record high consumer debt. So we as individuals are in debt up to here, the nation's in debt up to here, corporate debt, you name it. Debt means we're living beyond our means. Okay, well, the only way to get out of debt is to cut back. And when we're this far in debt, we've got to cut back a lot. All right, so the cutbacks are coming. There's no way around that one. Eventually, we're going to run out of credit, which is essentially what happened in 2008. 2000, people went broke. Then the banks stepped in and started handing out money. 2008, the banks went broke. Then the government stepped in and started handing out money. And now the government's broke. Okay, so I've been trying to figure this out. And I've been trying to think about this from just absolutely every different angle I could because this is such a puzzle. Okay, poverty itself. How much of it's culturally related? And I was thinking of so many of the Native American tribes, especially out west in the extremely rural areas, and poverty is an issue for a lot of them. Okay, and all the problems that come along with poverty, lack of opportunity, lack of education, alcoholism, drug abuse, crime, corruption. Okay, and I was thinking so many of those tribes, their cultures were based on a life that is no more. Right? Most of them were traditional hunters and gatherers. Okay, that world's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But their cultures are still based on that. And is their cultures holding them back in some way? Okay, and when I think of those tribes, I mean, the people are still there, but I think of the cultures as almost like ghosts. Echoes from the past that are slowly fading. And then I started thinking about other cultures. Okay, I'm in the South, southern United States, the deep South. All right, we've got part of our culture is from a past that is no more. Margaret Mitchell wrote a famous novel on this, Gone with the Wind. All right, we still see echoes from that past here, the Confederate battle flag. How many people here hanging on to that part of our culture has that prevented from thriving now in the present? Okay, so many blacks in the United States. How much of their culture and identity is tied to slavery from that exact same time in history? Okay, a time that is no more, that's long gone. How many of them has hanging on to that or having that as part of their culture prevented them from thriving and moving forward? Okay. And the mountains, the Appalachians, famous for being poor. Okay, their history, their culture is based on farming and then coal mining. Well, now so many of the mines have closed, and so many of the towns there remind me of so many of the tribes out west in the rural areas, just echoes slowly fading away there. And then now, okay, the northern U.S. and Midwest, once extremely wealthy centers of industry. And all that remains now, so many of them, just the rusted out ruins of once great manufacturing plants and decaying cities, Detroit. Okay, I see that coming for all of us. We don't make anything anymore here. Okay, so how do we escape this? And as far as the cultural part, okay, culture, and this is where it gets really tricky. Culture can hold us back, and this is something I have to be aware of as a conservative. I am a conservative, and the instinct for conservatives is to conserve, to preserve, especially culture. All right, the instinct for liberals is change. Okay, well, that traditionally for the West, that tension between conservatives and liberals has been very healthy for us. Okay, we don't need to change too fast, or everything can just collapse into chaos. And at the same time, we don't need to stay stuck in the past, which I might be guilty of that. So we need that constant tension there. All right, well, that tension's not there anymore. Now we've got just outright hostilities between the left and right, with the left descending into chaos, insanity. So many now on the left, especially far left, have become completely detached from reality. And most of us can see that. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you think there's no difference between men and women. Okay, that's detached from reality. At the same time, on the conservative front, so many of us, and culture, what culture does is it gives us a framework for seeing the world. Okay, so that's where our concept of good and bad, right and wrong, beauty comes from, culture. Okay, so culture guides us in uncertain times. It doesn't give us a stern set of rules that we have to follow. It gives us our framework for understanding the rules, and that's what we develop our rules from. It gives us our framework for understanding the world, and that's what we get our rules from. Okay, so we need those basic cultural principles that we can fall back on in uncertain times to get us through uncertain times. Okay, but what's coming now with all of the changes in technology, we don't know how to deal with it. Okay, we don't even know what the problems are. A really great quote I heard, I don't know where this is from, but traditions are solutions to problems that have since been forgotten. Okay, I really like that as a conservative. But, okay, with all of the changes in technology, we don't even know what the problems are now. We haven't even identified them yet. We haven't had time to develop the traditions to overcome the problems. Okay, well, the changes in technology, they're increasing exponentially, especially you throw in AI, and okay, there's a lot of uncertainty. Many of us have returned to our cultural traditions because we know none of us are really sure what's happening, what's going on. So just out of gut instinct, we're going to return to our traditions. I think that's what's been driving the homesteading movement. And most of us, that's what our ancestors were farmers. Okay, so we're going to go back to that. That's our safety. Okay, and for myself, I've mentioned quite a few times the new house that I'm working on. Okay, I've been very hesitant to call it a homestead. But a big part of what I'm trying to do there is be more self-sufficient. I'm moving there. It's got a little more land with it. I can plant fruit trees, to garden, all of that fun stuff. But I have absolutely no desire whatsoever to try to be self-sufficient, completely self-sufficient. That's work. I mean, that's a quick way for poverty, and I think what so many have realized that have tried to go down that homesteading path is it ain't easy. Okay, my grandfather, when he was a young boy, he lived on his grandfather's farm. He was a farmer. He was tickled to move away from the farm and go to the city and work in a mill. Okay, that was work, and they were poor. All right, well, that's the life of homesteading, unless you've got some extra source of income. Okay, but if you're depending on that for your income, that's going to be a tough life for most of us. Now, some manage to figure out something and they get in some kind of niche, and maybe they're just in the perfect place for a farmer's market, and they can do pretty good. But for the majority of us, homesteading's a path to poverty. All right, so I have no desire whatsoever to try to earn an income from what I'm going to do with the garden and so forth. But what I am going to try to do with that is not be as vulnerable to inflation, especially food prices. Okay, so that's going to offset what I have to spend on groceries. It's not going to eliminate it. Okay, every little bit helps though. All right, plus I enjoy that. So that's improving my quality of life along with that. And if you hate gardening and you go try to garden just to save money, okay, I guess, anyway. So our culture is not set up for this. And I'm really questioning all this, and again, just trying to figure a way out of this. And young people, okay, so many of you younger people out there, you know things are getting worse, okay? You know you can't afford a house. All right, it's what you make versus what houses cost. You're not seeing any kind of way to make that happen. Okay, well, wages have been stagnant for 40 years now. All right, but prices haven't been. All right, now you factor in inflation, and it's getting tougher. And we're all seeing it. We all know it. Okay, so this is something that is going to affect all of us, and we need to figure this out. And right now, the best I've got, I still don't have it figured out. I'm still struggling with this. But the best I've got is maybe we've got to have our 1 foot in each world. We've got to know the traditions. We've got to be able to plant a garden, grow some food. At the same time, we need to be familiar with technology. We need to acquire those new skills that can let us go get those jobs that do pay well. That way we've got an income, and then those two together, maybe that's the happy median. So that's just something part of what I've been trying to figure out for some time now. And I think I've made some progress, which is why I shared this today. Just recognizing the importance of culture, both good and bad. Culture is what guides us in uncertain times. And at the same time, we do need to be open to new technology and implementing it. Maybe the new technology can make homesteading much easier as a way to save money. I don't think we're ever going to make money homesteading. All right, farming, that's what we're talking about here when so many say homesteading. Okay, I know personally I'm never going to be able to compete with big farms, giant corporations. I'm not going to be able to grow stuff and sell it for the price they do. All right, but if I can apply cheap new technology to what I'm doing, could I do it more efficiently and make it much easier and produce a lot more of my own food and not be dependent upon grocery stores and so forth? I mean, that's just one of many questions we're going to have to answer going forward. And then this also gets into so many other things that I don't understand. Okay, poverty itself. Not having money, being broke. What just sucks about not having money is we don't have options. Having money gives us options. Okay, but when I look at our culture now, and the options so many are choosing, shiny trinkets. That's what so many of us are buying now, and all of us are becoming more and more removed from reality with these. Okay, if that's what we're spending our money on, then I wouldn't call what we've got now wealth. If there's no meaning to any of it. Okay, so not having a lot of money but having meaning in our life, is that poverty? Okay, and poverty being poor doesn't have to be ugly, at least when we're talking about just from a money standpoint. Okay, we can still create beautiful things. I mean, they were building beautiful furniture in the 1600s. Okay, hand tools, very limited technology compared to now. I'm not saying your average peasant had beautiful things, but with the technology we have now, with power tools, could we build beautiful things for ourselves? I've made a few things here I'm rather proud of that I think add to my quality of living. All I've got in it's time. I built my tool cabinet here, my bench. Okay, so yeah, what exactly does poverty mean? And I'm certain we could have a very high standard of living without much money, but it requires morals and values, and we've lost so many of them. Again, that's so many people now with money buying things that are essentially meaningless, just to shiny trinkets, bling, just to be flashy and show off. And, okay, well, that reminds me of a quote I heard. I would hate to think I was so poor as to not have anything but money. Okay, now unfortunately, so often with poverty comes up all of the bad things I mentioned earlier: crime and alcoholism, despair, lack of opportunity, lack of education. All of those bad things. That just seems to go hand in hand with poverty and not having money, but why? I mean, if we didn't have much money, but we had a lot of knowledge and we could do things, build things and make things and build beautiful homes and furniture and all of that good stuff, and we're knowledgeable. I mean, information is so easy to obtain now, and education is so easy to obtain. We do not need a college. As a matter of fact, we're probably better off without one now. All we need is that culture, that insistence on learning. The founders of our nation here in the U.S., how many of them were extremely brilliant men, spoke many languages, read the original Greek accounts in Greek of what a democracy was and all of that good stuff. And so many of the early writings of Rome in Latin, again, these were largely self-educated men. Think of the information we have available to us now. All right, for them, books were almost priceless because they were so hard to come by. And we have the entire world at our fingertips, and what are we doing with it? Watching TikToks. So, just so many things there I do not understand, but we definitely need to be aware of the culture part. We need to be aware of what's coming. Okay, and then from there, we need to figure out a path through what's coming. And me as a Christian, that is what's guided Western civilization for 2,000 years. But how many now have completely lost touch with that tradition and letting God guide us? Okay, I don't think there's going to be anything more important going into the future and the uncertain times that we're facing than letting God direct our path. All right, not many are going to be on that path, though. All right, some things to think about, and we'll get back to this later. God bless and have a great day.